Well, the Friday GT3 Championship rolls on and rolls into a fantastic location as we continue to try and sort out the GT3 Friday Championship. Several drivers in it and nobody showing or letting up yet. Hello and welcome from Kyalami in South Africa. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Ryan Mawson, and as always, Stewie in the box. And tonight it is going to be all about this man pictured here and the man who has topped practice so far, Jardier and Tico Van Der Velde. Welcome in, Ryan Mawson, and welcome back, by the way. It's going to be a fight between these two, we expect, and why not take it to South Africa and do it?
Yeah, and what a beautiful circuit this looks at with the low, the sunset light that we've got. It's just such a great track, I find. The flowing nature of it. It does upset some drivers though, and especially after the 1.8 update. I know I've been talking to some of the drivers who have been complaining about the tire temperatures and the pressures that they've got. It is quite easy to overheat the tires now in some of the sections like the S's, but it's gonna be interesting. Everyone's had to relearn their car as well as the track. There are some tracks you do have to drive completely differently now, but it's gonna be another epic battle between the downforcey McLaren of Tinko and the relentless Porsches of Jardier. No Boothby today though, so far as you can see on the timing screen. So that's gonna throw a bit of an interest in.
Yeah, that's very strange. Our championship leader, one of the stories that we're following tonight, George Boothby, not here. And I wonder why that might be. I don't think that Boothby would walk out on a championship he's leading unless he didn't have any other choice. And by the way, you wonder why Ryan Mawson sounds a little bit different tonight. He's got a whole new audio setup, and this will be the first time any of you have heard that. So the new and improved Ryan Mawson coming at you tonight as practice ends. Dinko retakes the top spot. We were talking before we went live that Jardier was well down the order, and I had remarked that that wasn't too uncommon for Jardier to be somewhere in the middle of the pack. He always runs a lap near the end that gets him up there. Today was no different.
Now, and the other thing as well is that Jardier, his practice pace, you can never really take that as a gospel. We've seen Jardier not only being practiced way down, but even qualify, a bit down the order. For example, remember Brands Hatch wasn't exactly like he pulled that, and every single time Jardier comes out to race and gets behind the wheel of that car with a goal in front of him, he will be a force to reckon with. So if he's starting all the way up in potentially what looks like a P2 pace, that is really going to put the pressure on Tico.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter how good you qualify if you're a great racer. And I think Jardier falls into that category of a great racer and a great competitor, knows how to get through the field. We've seen him on this very channel, RCI TV, go from last to first. In fact, in that race, he went from first to last and back to first in just about an hour's time. Brilliant race as well. And nothing is out of the realm of possibility. Just a few cars finishing up their practice here. Qualifying, we've got the 1.8 update. Ryan Mawson, all of the hiccups from week one with the brand new update are over. Different physics, different BOP, different traction, a lot of things different here in South Africa today. What are your predictions for this session?
Well, predictions are going to be that, especially with that fast track, that a lot of drivers are going to have to relearn, where can you push and how long it will take to get it to that sort of lovely optimum setting. I was having a quick flick through some of the BOP updates, and it's not like a small change for the BOP update. Some cars have been drastically changed. I mean, we're talking like almost 60 kilograms taken off certain cars at certain tracks, which is basically turns how your car handles completely upside down. I know certain cars like the Bentley, the 747 that we're seeing, Christopher Verstappen, a car that has always seemed to be driven very wildly by this driver. Well, it's been made a little bit looser, I feel. So that is going to be incredibly scary to drive. Some of the other cars have been made a little bit softer, a little bit easier to handle. And the big point as well that I know a lot of drivers have touched on, and it will come into play here, the ABS system and the braking forces have been changed. Now, what does this mean? Well, it means that coming down corners and into heavy braking zones like this, down mineshaft and into the hard braking zone for the hairpin, your distances change, the way your trail brake changes, unsettling the car. It's all just, everything is, as I said, everything has changed. It will be very interesting to see what drivers can cope with that, especially over the hour. But for the first time under the timing screen, it will be the 747, the big Bentley, to take us around a lap of Kyalami.
Well, we are going to take a lap around Kyalami, and just to add to the conversation, the Bentley specifically took a lot of changes on board, and I've talked to a couple of Bentley drivers, people that used to main this car, that said that they might consider not doing that in the future. It handles so differently, and it's a little bit more difficult to get along with. You almost saw it right there, getting ever so slightly sideways. And of course, those not just drivers of the Bentley, I'm talking about champions that have won championships in this very car, considering driving something else. That tells you all you need to know about some of the changes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like today, I used to main the Bentley. I was the Bentley man for quite a lot of friends. It was all I would drive and all I would be happy in. But you can see there, even a lot of times into the braking zones where you've got to weight change the car. It now really wants to rotate around on you. You've seen a few times Streppen's had to correct it, bring that car back into line. Whereas before, it was actually quite a neutral car that you could make it do what you wanted on the throttle, which is what a lot of people didn't like. They didn't like the rear end snapping on the throttle, and some drivers could get used to that. But now, it is really quite a different beast. And finally coming up to Cheetah, the only corner I say where Bentley will help you, because right-hand drive, you can see that apex, lovely, I'm sure. So that will claim the lives of some people today, we're sure. If you come to Kyalami and you don't touch Cheetah, you've never really been. And there you go, another big bite from the Bentley coming out. Christopher Streppen hugging the wall, trying to get that time. And it will be a 141.3, immediately knocked off by the leader of Tico Van Der Velde.
Nico Van Der Velde setting the pace, a 140.820, half a second quicker than Verstappen. Valentin Berrier comes through just under that mark, and now Taylor in the 17 Aston comes in way under that mark, just over a tenth slower. So the mark to beat, after most of the drivers have done their first lap, a 40.820. Tico Van Der Velde, what a run this gentleman's been on the last couple of weeks. He had that surprise win 2 weeks ago. He won last week in style after passing George Boothby on the racetrack. He looks unstoppable.
And that's a high 40. I think we're going to see some lower times. The track has now clicked over to optimum as well. That's going to help some cars a lot more than others with the new update. You've got to be even more kind to the tires on this update. You've just got to break them in ever so slowly. 329, Jan Kilms, 0.4 of a second off the pace. But for a first flyer, some of these laps are really blistering.
Yeah, they're absolutely getting a handle on these physics. A week ago, it looked like a bunch of people who had just started playing the sim. You see that a lot with title updates, and I've seen that in other esports as well, where you have to go back to the drawing board and refigure things out. I think that's exactly what's happened. There's still a lot of unsettled pro drivers. Keep in mind, only pros in the field tonight. And there's a lot of them that are still unsettled by the changes. This is only week 2, and just entered week 2, as a matter of fact. So you've only had about 10 days with this setup to get your head wrapped around it. These cars were picked in the 1.7 era. Things halfway through the season flipped on their head. Everyone having to do their homework now. Tico Van Der Velde with a 40.675 halfway through the session, the quickest mark so far. Rins Krozen goes second in the 81 Porsche, just about a quarter of a second off of that mark. Taylor comes back to third. Soldatov slots in to fourth. Verstappen rounding out your top 5. Everybody else continuing to be pushed back. Massoum in the 49 Ferrari makes it within 9/10 of a second, slotting into the 10th place position for the moment. What does Alexander Bourdais have in the Lexus? this lap, I wonder, down in 15th.
And it'll be interesting as well to see over time as some of the older gen cars, they talked about how Eke and Kunos have now been given a little bit more freedom from SRO for cars that have been basically legacied. Cars that they no longer run and they've fallen out of favor as it was. And a lot of them fell so far down out of favor that, nobody would ever drive them again. It'll be interesting to see what happens to some of these cars. They've been given a bit more artistic freedom, as you will, and the Hondas. They used to be historically, terrifying to drive against at an IGTC track just because of the tremendous power bomb advantage that they had there. And as Herbert Frechel takes his Honda all the way up into P8. But it'll be interesting to see if they get brought slowly back to the front of the grid. And there you go. The man who we thought was ailing a little bit was quite down there in the qualifying for so long. Jardier puts it on pole.
That's pretty much what you expect from Jaroslav Hanzik, also known as Jardier, to the masses, a 40.595, the mark to beat, and immediately reset to pit lane. I was going to ask, do you think he comes back out and gives it one more shot? The answer is yes. He's put a fresh set of boots on that car, maybe made a slight adjustment, though I doubt it, because he was only stationary for a moment or so, just enough to change the tires on the 39. He'll take one more shot at it as Tico Van Der Velde now 8/100ths off of that pace. Martin Lawrence slots into 8th place in the 171 Connection Lost racing car. And that's a good lap for them as the times continue to come down. You should have been here, Mawson, a week ago. The times were all over the place. We had second gaps and all that stuff. It's amazing the difference a week makes in this league. We had a second gap between about 5th place to 8th place last week. Now, 1 week on from the update, top 18, go ahead and call it near as makes no difference. Top 20, all back within a second.
Yeah, and that is the thing that they did mention, that the fundamentals have not changed hugely, but it's all these small little nuances as the 899, that big Mercedes, that takes a little bit of a nibble at Mikael Sundstrom. The fundamentals have not changed, but there's all these small nuances now that you've got to get used to on cars and those tires. I did think that that now might be, or we might see that a lot more in qualifying, where people do a couple of really hard flyers, just sacrifice the tires, completely chew them up, and then immediately back into the pits. We've seen Jardier pull that strategy off. Be interesting to see if that was the better strategy. Tinko has been around for a little while on his tires. Now, will heating them up and getting them up to temperature be the strategy, or is it going to be that one and done? We'll see when Jardier comes across the line and Tinko comes across the line. What are the times going to be?
Yeah, and I don't think that strategy is set in stone. I don't think there's a right and a wrong call. There might be after tonight. These are some of the heavy hitters in ACC competition, mind you, some of the aliens and some of the elite in the sport. Then again, just looking at the top of this timetable, you would have known that just by looking. Soldatov up to 3rd, Verstappen 4th, Rins Krozen your top 5 right now. Look at that Honda, the 86 Honda of Herbert Frechel. For a very long time here in South Africa, the Honda was the car to have, that and a Porsche. But I gotta say, it is a nice, delightful mix of manufacturers inside the top 10. Qualifying clock expires. All flying laps will count here as Jardier comes back into the pit lane. Soldatov will stay in the lane. Herbert Frechel abandons his lap. Everybody else still trying to make it. And here is Tico Van Der Velde, the driver with the best shot. Needs 8/100ths of a second.
Needs basically nothing. Yeah, it's just the tiniest little bit more, a better exit. Going through some of the last corners, you want to run this as far as, much of the track limits as you dare. You're clipping that curb, and just you can see him trying to extend all of the track that you can get without getting a track limit. Right over the edge, right over that rumble strip, racing up to the line. What will it be? It will be pole position.
Oh, I just wonder how much Jardier actually cared about that pole position. That's more points for Tinko if he can hold on to it. Yan comes across the line, will be 7th quickest. Rins Krozen now in 5th place, goes to 3rd with that lap of 48.85 for him. 2 Porsches in the top 3. And you just have to wonder as the final cars come across the line, what does Verstappen have? Not anything to improve out of fifth place. Qualifying finished and confirmed. Tico Van Der Velde with the quickest third sector and the best time, a 140.550, good enough for pole. Jardier in second place with the quickest second sector, just a little bit off, 45 one hundredths of a second. Rins Krozen third, doesn't have any fastest sector. Going back to Soldatov, Soldatov, the fastest of all in sector one. How many times, Mawson, do we see this and we think, well, if nobody is particularly dominant in all the sectors, might be a really close race.
Absolutely, and the other thing as well is with some of the changes, the best in Sector 1, that's the V8. That is the what we would have classified as the turbo lag king. It had, it really struggled out of some of the slower corners. Turn 1, what is essentially turn 2, I should call it. Turn 1 at Kyalami is the kink. You'd think that that car would just be useless in Sector 1, but no, not with these new changes.
Well, here's how we have gotten to this point. The GT3 championship points, all pros here tonight. George Boothby in the 75 came in as the points leader. The only driver to score 4 podiums out of 4 attempts has a 257 points. He is not here tonight, which means that second place Tico Van Der Velde with the pole position, with not having a challenge from Boothby in the 166, will be your championship leader leaving today. We assume he has 231 points right now. Jardier, Jaroslav Hanzik in the 39 has 199. That's 32 points out. That is not a comfortable enough margin for Tinko just yet near the halfway point of the season. In fourth place, Nicholas Taylor with 144, a little gap there between third and fourth. And then it gets close again. Christopher Streppen in the 747, 131. Jao Kavaka with 123. The man they call Tidge, Martin Grady, and the man I call the king of the plebs on 114. Herbert Frischel, Mikhail Sundstrom, and Konstantin Soldatov all tied for eighth place. Moving on to the second page of the grid, 93 points for Martin Lawrence. Harry Conway no longer taking part in this championship. Minnow Crozen is, however, and stands to gain quite mightily here tonight. Grantas Caracas in the 15 with 84 points. Barzaghi with 77. Valentin Berrier with 70. Jan Klimes with 66, tied with Adam Dubel for the 17th place position. Rins Crozen down in 19th place with 54 points. Looked racy tonight. Will Stevenson with 50 points rounds out the top 20. Vasily Anafreev, 21st with 42 points. Borodai with 35. Harley Chamberlain, 1 point behind with 34. Darren Mahalan, 1 point behind as well with 33. And just a few behind them, Masum in the 49 with 31 points, tied with Christoph Stachecki in the 144. Matter of fact, they're all tied. Max Payne back in 27th, another deadlock there for several positions. 21 points for Beeson. Uh, Batistella with 20 points and Dal Digny rounding out the top 30 with 15. And these are going to be your drivers that are struggling mightily and have missed most of the races. The real sad sight to see Savalainen on this page. Chris Vining, I think they could have done some damage had they not missed a lot of races. Well, that's how we've gotten here to this point. We know George Boothby isn't here, Ryan Mawson. Tinko's done everything right so far, went up and took the pole in the closing moments. But we know something. That man sitting to his left right there, he is not going to allow this to get away from him. How many times have we seen Jardier race better than he qualifies? And if he's already on the front row, there's only one place he can possibly take.
That Porsche is still one of the best cars to launch in ACC. If you can get your reactions, you're watching those greens right till the moment they go. The 39 is going to be formidable into what is turn two here at Kyalami. Looking down the grid, the other thing that the 1.8 update brought us, Have you noticed how, my God, some of the cameras now look absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure our broadcasters will have, much appreciated with that. Some of the new tools have been given. You can make this game just look so much better now, and also nice to see a Honda this way up on the grid. That's the 86. That's the Herbert Froschel car. But everyone, basically, all this grid are within a second of one another. Look at the variance of cars, driving styles, setups. I think that the 1.8 update, if anything, it's made the racing even better.
You're right there, partner. I mean, it's not only the visuals as well, the net code has been worked on as well. An accident in the past week that would have sent cars flying as if they were shot out of a cannon now no longer really do that most of the time. And it creates more fender benders, which is exciting racing, but it doesn't end races like it used to do. It's all very brilliant indeed. And you talked about the camera angles. Stewie absolutely loves them. We love them. Chat noticed a week ago just how brilliant they look, and it's hard to argue with that result. It's a brilliant day for racing in South Africa. We welcome you all in watching at home. We hope that your Friday is going well. We invite you to like, subscribe, hit the bell for more GT racing action that you can always depend upon here on RCI TV. We hope you're well. Settle in. It's going to be a very interesting race. A big thank you to our partners as well, Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and SimRacing.gp. More information about those fine folks after the race.
And well, warm-up lap has started as everyone gets the cars running, and a couple of people deciding that we need the lights on. I think you might be needing them a little bit after a while. Just got to get those tires up to temperature and pressure. The 1.8 update, if it has told us anything, is that tire preservation is such a big part of this update now. It'll be interesting to see, because some of the drivers as well, I know their driving style is very, very aggressive, and they're very on it. It'll be interesting to see what the pace is over over a long time. And Kyalami is not necessarily a track I would have ever said that is nice on your tires. But the one nice thing as well is that the tires now, they cool off a lot slower, which means that on the warm-up lap you don't have to wait until that absolute last second to press drive, and nor do you have to be riding the brakes until you basically turn them into molten metal to get some heat into them. Although I'm pretty sure when we did the little 1.8 live patch update, Mr. Jesse Lee can tell you that that is completely incorrect.
I was hoping that we would not get to that. I did melt the brake on my BMW GT3 M4. I did in fact do that. It was a science experiment.
It's advanced testing. We will send that back to BMW and be like, guys, your brakes are lovely. They work at 3,000 degrees C, and that's not a misprint.
They were 256 degrees C, and because I had known that I was going to boil my brakes, I set my tire pressures really low. My tires, I'll have you know, for that entire race were absolutely optimum. Call that a calculated move, if you will. Beautiful scenes here in South Africa, a beautiful country indeed, and as one of the greatest racing tracks of all time here at Kyalami. It is just such a world-renowned circuit. We've spoken of it before. The renovations here have done nothing but preserve the natural greatness of the circuit, and it's a fan favorite. It's a favorite of ours as well. Tonight, a lot of questions. What will the GT3 cars be like here tonight? What will the championship look like in 1 week's time? Tico on the pole will lead this championship as soon as we go green tonight. George Boothby not here, but what can Jardier do to limit the damage or potentially swing the pendulum in his favor? One corner to go, Ryan Mawson. Oh boy, everybody strap in.
What can Jardier do? He needs to get that launch. I actually watched back a little bit of what I thought I was wrong at Brands Hatch. Jardier wanted to get by Tico. Let's see if this time these drivers know what each other is like. I think Jardier is going to have to pull something out the bag. He knows if he gets stuck behind Tico, he's going to have problems. We're waiting for the green flag, still going under the checkered. We're waiting for those green lights to come. Finally, green flag, here we go.
Green flag off here. Everybody going single file, trying to get single file. You don't want to be side by side here. You'll lose a lot of time in turn two. It's not the corner you want to be in there. They're going to be going 3 wide. Contact with Rins Crozen. Does Rins go around? No, he doesn't. He saves it somehow. The Bentley gets through. Look at Jardier. Jardier trying to go up the inside. He's going to get it. The ultimate opportunist. Jardier gets it done. Tico down to second. Rins is through in third. And it's chaos behind them. Everybody gets away cleanly, though.
2 wide all the way back, right pretty much to the last position on the grid almost. And what did I say? I said that Porsche was going to be a formidable car at the start. Jardier knew that he needed to get round, and there you have it. You can see though that even though Tico had such a great reaction, the Porsche has just got the traction, it's got the acceleration. That thing will get up and go if you get the track right. And yeah, here we go. Already pulled out a little bit of a gap, and look at the train going all the way down the hill.
Going to be like that. Valentin Berrier here and Martin Grady, and it's just a Bentley fest here in the middle of the pack. That's going to also be Mulholland, I'm pretty sure, in the mix. Makes me wonder where Payne went in this group. Did he go forward? He went backward, did Max Payne, so losing several positions as it's 4 Bentleys in a row. Berrier, Grady, Mulholland, and Stevenson all together. Payne the caboose on this train as they're all sorting it out. We had so many Bentley on Bentley sort of accidents and battles 1 week ago, and it has done nothing but carry over. Oh my goodness! Alexander Borodai on the grass. That's not how you want to be in Cheetah, but you will very often find that is your only option when you go side by side through there. Konstantin Soldatov in the 911 Aston. I know it's confusing. Trying to get by Rins Crozen for 3rd place. Will do that. How many places will Rins lose here?
Well, look at the Honda, the 86 in a straight line. That's Herbert Frischel. You just can't touch the Honda in a straight line, and actually Rins is going to get bullied out even more. That is the Bentley of Verstappen. Ends up on the outside of the corner. That's just never what you want through sector 1. Ends up falling all the way down. That is 6th position now.
Beeson's had some sort of calamity coming up to barbecue, I'm pretty sure, because they fell out of the middle of the pack and they are now running dead last on the circuit. I'm not sure what happened to the 51 Ferrari, but certainly something, as they have made their way all the way to the back. Meanwhile, back inside the top 10, you see that fight. Is this going to show us what happened to Beeson? Remember, Beeson's in that Ferrari, that 51, and oh yes, just contact there. And everybody else scrambling, another Porsche off into the dirt. Well spotted there by Stewie.
And that shows as well, that's the Martin Lawrence car, that AMR, the 177. You know, that car was relatively unaffected. Do that pre-patch, both cars would have gone off in a, you know, quite a monumental crash. But yeah, now, these are the kind of things that you can have. Little mistakes by other drivers may not necessarily end your race. And as we still go, this is now lap 2. What's happened? That is the 840 taking a big bite out of Cheetah. I didn't think it would happen.
Was there contact here, or was this just curve? That was all curve.
He took a bite out of Cheetah, and Cheetah took a bite out of him.
Well, some people ask, why do they call it Cheetah? That's a weird name for a corner. Well, the corner that bites back, and certainly it is. Rins Crozen is continuing to be assaulted here, this time by, is that Taylor? That is Taylor. So that means that Rins has gotten by Taylor for the time being, but Taylor's still trying to get that position back away from him. Rins running in 3rd on lap 1, lost several positions when Konstantin Soldatov went through. Herbert Frischel and Verstappen, the back half of your top 5. By the way, Tico has not fallen off the back of Jardier up front, a positive sign so far, at least for the championship hopes. Of course, a couple of new things if you're joining us for the first time. If you look at the track map, you'll notice that one of the circles is actually a triangle. Oh, contact there. Minnow Crozen in the 966 of Max Payne. No, that wasn't. Was that Max Payne? That is Max Payne. Yes, indeed.
The big Nissan.
Contact there. Oh, more contact in the back there as the AMG makes contact with several cars. Getting real friendly.
Just testing it out for Kunos. You see, we need to test the limits of these of the new netcode. I'll tell you what though, if you do want to test something, give it to race car drivers. They'll always manage to test it to the limits and then some.
That's absolutely the case. What I was going to say prior to them making body contact is you'll notice that one of the circles on the track map on the right is a triangle. That denotes who the leader of the race is. And if you direct your attention to the scoring pylon on the left, you'll notice there's a magenta background to one of the numbers. That is the fastest lap of the race currently. Currently, Konstantin Soldatov in the 911 Aston has that lap, and it's no small wonder after they were basically shot out of a cannon at the start of this race. So they have the fastest lap, and of course, the red number is the number of the car, or excuse me, is the position of car that we're focusing on. Oh, and Martin Lawrence goes for a little one there. Rins gets a little friendly.
Rins Croson tapping the back of the Aston Martin. That's Martin Lawrence's car, actually. Going a little bit sideways. That lets the 72 and the 18 of Grady and Valentin Barrier through. As these two continue to fight it out, I'm sure that Martin Lawrence will be a little bit displeased with that.
Yeah, he's not going to be happy. He's going to be wondering what in the world that was for, just trying to exist, and gets punted through the corner. But to the point that we were making earlier, pre-patch, that would have been a massive crash. The 177 would have been around in the sand trap, but post-patch of 1.8, it's just a bump, and he's all good, and everything continues the way it is. What about those Bentleys of Barrier and Grady, however? They are coming through the field. What happens here? It's Alexander Bourdais gets punted, and oh dear.
Almost a quite a good save. It's just snapped on the transition back, which
that was Yan that did that.
Yeah, it's so hard to catch these GT3 cars. They're not really designed for drifting, I would say. But it does seem that the Bentley pack there's been a little bit of a break in the Bentley pack, but they're still all together. And actually, Rins Croson, the 81, is one of the first to come down the pit lane to serve their mandatory stop, has decided that they don't want to be hounded on the race circuit anymore.
Well, Rins has found themselves in the mix here so far and has had several contacts. It might be just worth it to find a little bit of clean air. As always, the pit stop requirement in this series is 1 liter of fuel, no tire change required, and no driver change permitted in this series. So put 1 liter of fuel in the car, that will satisfy the minimum pit requirement as long as you pit in the pit window that you see above. And the early pit stop, you know me, I'm a fan of it.
It also means that we kind of get a marker of, we know where Rins vaguely was. We know obviously now he will come out in dead last position. As long as the traffic for Rins is good, might actually work out. And it's always interesting to see, you know, these various strategies going. And speaking of strategies, right up ahead, I think the strategy for Jardier at the minute is run away from the angry McLaren in the rearview mirror. That big evil red 166 McLaren of Tinko has not left it, as in the background actually. That is Herbert Frechel still mounting that attack and that pressure on Soldatov. The 911, who had the fastest lap, has now lost it to that 86 Honda.
Yeah, that's impressive. We talked about the Honda probably being the car to beat here pre-patch, and it seems to be that it is just as good here post-patch. I think some of the other cars have been brought up to its level, though. Christoph Verstappen in the pit lane as well. Gotta love this move, pitting outside the top 5 in the middle of the pack. These early pit stops, I'm always a fan of the undercut, and it certainly could work. Herbert Frechel trying to go down the inside. It was just a dummy. He did not have the overlap. And talking about Tinko for a minute, Ryan, we saw him a week ago do this exact same thing to George Boothby for about 15 minutes before he got around. And it's just Tinko's MO. I'm going to wait for your tires to run out, you to lose concentration or run off the track, and then I'm going to pass you. I'm not going to force a move. And that safe driving has been very rewarding for Tinko, winning 2 races on the trot.
And that kind of driving with certain drivers as well. They're not only doing that, but they're sitting, waiting, and looking. Where is your car weak? Where is my car strong? Or where is a certain driver weak? They will almost hunt you down. And it's when you've got that kind of driver in your rearview mirror. Some people may get complacent. They've not gone for a move in laps and laps. I find that that's actually the worst. You don't know what they're planning or what they're doing. Tinko knows what he's got to do. He knows that he can easily lead this championship. Obviously, Boothby is not here tonight to defend his title, so Tinko will take it, but he's wanting to minimize any kind of points lost to Jardier.
Something else I was thinking, 65 points on offer for a win. If Jardier was to win this race and Tinko was to finish second, that would close up that title. And I think if Boothby comes back next week, which I assume he will do, it would still be a very close race indeed. These two have not had enough of racing each other. We'll see what happens here. Martin Grady was off the back of Barrier a little bit. Oh, that's what happened. Barrier jumping over Cheetah. He's going to lose that position. Grady's going to be up a spot. Oh, no. Contact there off the final corner at Ingwe. But still, a pass nonetheless. So those positions reversed. It was Barrier, then Grady. Now it's Grady, then Barrier. And here's Herbert for Shell for third place. Going to get the pass done. Easy peasy. That's how you draw it up in your dreams.
Honda looks so strong in the first sector, which is once again a car that you wouldn't have necessarily said was super strong in the first sector. That is the second time that Frechelle has managed to pull that move off, getting around Rins Krozen in the 81, and now has managed to get past Soldatov, the 911, two different cars. We first theorized that maybe it's just a bit of Porsche's, lack of straight line speed and having to defend it to turn into sort of sector one. You're always going to be a little bit slower. The Aston Martin, though, is no slouch in a straight line once it's got wound up. So that Honda is really actually rocking and rolling now. It'll be very interesting if he can catch back up to Tinko and Jardier. What is Tinko going to do? Would he let him by? In the sense that you're not in this points battle, but maybe he can unsettle Jardier with the straight line speed of that Honda versus the Porsche.
I think Tinko will probably fight him for it because Tinko's fighting for the win here, and you can't just lay over, but it's not the end of the world. If Rochelle goes and takes the lead, Rochelle's not in this championship, really. I think down in about 9th or 10th place, has had a sign out this season, so is a non-factor. And I think if Tinko wants to, he can let him go, especially if Rochelle gets there. It certainly looks like he's quicker, but I don't really think it's what he's focused on right now. He might have to consider it here in a lap or two. What happened to João Kabaka? Kabaka's going to get a place here as the Bentley goes off hard into the dirt. You said it earlier, Ryan. It was going to be a common theme going off in Cheetah, and, well, some things never change.
It seems that a lot of the Bentleys are wanting to take the bite of the corner. It is a different car to drive the Bentley, though, merely for the fact it is the only GT3 car in the field that's right-hand drive. You can really tell that a lot of drivers who maybe don't drive the Bentley all the time, all your markers change, and obviously if you throw the car in thinking it's a left-hand drive, well, and your steering wheel's on the wrong side, you will quickly learn where the edge of the track is.
Well, a couple of Bentleys in the field, and by a couple I mean several, because it was one of the preferred cars of choice. We talked a little bit briefly earlier in qualifying that maybe not so much anymore, as some of the BOP updates and some of the physics changes have maybe hurt that car a little bit, brought it a little bit more in line. But Adam Dubel, who had a little issue earlier, it's going to have an issue here. Contact with Mikael Sundstrom. Mikael trying to defend the position away from Dubel. Dubel's going to have to go the long way around the outside of the Crocodiles. Can he do it? Only just, but Dubel's still there. Contact! Mikael Sundstrom gets sent!
The 899 trying to defend that place so much. There was still just the tiniest bit of overlap we can see. This is from the onboard of Adam Dubel. There's the 899 going around the outside. There ain't any track left.
Oh.
Off goes the 899.
Oh, I feel like Adam was holding his ground right there, Ryan.
Actually, Dubel immediately comes into the pits as well. And that is heavy damage on that 899 for Mikael Sundstrom.
I have a feeling that Mikael was told by whatever device he's using to measure gaps, probably the Heli Corsa thing embedded in the sim, that he was clear, and he might have been for a brief moment, but by the time that they got back off that corner, he wasn't. It happens all of the time, and I think Mikael will be lamenting that fact later, that he was told he was clear by the sim, and he wasn't. It is a common issue, and again, you only have millimeters in that case.
Well, when everyone's, within a second a lap, racing this close, yeah, he's down to literal millimeters. If you can block off that person that's going to go for a move, you can hold your position. then obviously any driver will try it. It's just such a fine line to walk.
Oh boy, it has been a fraught undertaking. That's why Kyalami is such a great track to race at, because it's very unpredictable for Mikael Sundstrom. It has seen them into the wall, and for the second time in 3 laps, Darren Mulholland has visited the sand trap. You'd think you'd get tired of building sandcastles by now.
You would think so. Like I said, the Bentleys seem to be quite happy doing that. I'm going to have to retract my earlier statement that the Bentley would be easier for the people, because you can see the GOM, you know, the apex. This fact is apparently not true.
Well, I think it might be true, but I think a lot of times they're just trying to get everything they can off that corner. They're trying to drive it like they would 2 weeks ago, and you have to forget that. You have to hit the reset button in your mind and know that your car, no matter what car you're in, is going to drive different. Maybe if you're in a Bentley, it drives a little bit more differently than it had. I know the Ferrari is another car that drives incredibly differently now than it did. A lot of people bailing on the Ferraris for upcoming championships, I would say, but João Cavaca, for instance, doing well for the second week in a row inside the top 10 in a car that a lot of people have labeled as frightening.
Yeah, and it was a strange one, because the Ferrari never used to be, you know, absolutely terrifying. It was different. The front end often gave you not much feedback, and a little bit of a scary one if you had aero wash. It was, you know, that car relied heavily on its aero, but it never used to be sort of death that you would classify to say an Audi. But yeah, I have talked with a few people who, when they're trying to push that car to its absolute limits, it becomes more and more scary. And here we go. This is what I mentioned earlier. Herbert Frechel, the 86, has managed to gap the 911, and he's really catching back up. And as we get our first drive-through as well, that's Nicholas Taylor, that's the 17. Now, was that for track limits?
We're going to see climbs here. This is, just hard to call that anything but a takeout, as they're all over each other when that happened. By the way, I've noticed Masoom has gotten a stop-go 30, and that's not due to an accident. I think he was speeding in pit lane.
Yeah, it does look like it. We did have a bit of a paper dropped on our desk that we've yet to read out. The Glenn who's working as one of the stewards tonight gave it out. We had a lap 1, turn 1 involving the 747, the 81, and the 17 of a racing incident moment. We had that drive-through we just showed on stream. That's between the 17 and the 329, so the drive-through for 17, the AMR that we saw earlier on. The 51 and the 171, no further action. Apparently the 51 hit the curb, launches into the side of the 171, taking themselves out. So obviously 51 in worse for wear of that. 329 and the 51, it was warning for car 51. A warning for not holding their brakes after a spin. The 82 and 966 had a racing incident. 82 overtakes with contact on the 966. A little bit of a robbing his racing. Same thing, just a racing incident, but it tells the driver that you've been noted. And the 81 had a no further action for minor contact.
Well, the battle for the lead is absolutely heating up, but before it gets to that boiling point, let me just explain. I think I can explain what happened to Masoom in the 49 Ferrari. There, again, a lot of updates in 1.8. How many times have we said that over the last few weeks? We do apologize for getting tired of hearing it, but it is massive. One of the updates, one of the things is you used to be able to be on the limiter but over speed when you came to pit lane, as long as you were on the limiter and the car would slow itself down. You can't do that anymore. You have to be at pit lane speed as soon as you hit the timing beam for pit lane. We've seen a lot of drivers the last couple of weeks get called out by that. Now, the other argument you could make is maybe they just didn't have the limiter on and they thought they did, which is a common issue. It happens all of the time, but either way, based on the severity of the penalty, a stop-go 30, you would imagine that that was massive speeding in some way, and it could have been because they thought the car they were going to get away with it because of the old style of how pit lane was judged. Now it's very different. You have to be at the limit, at the line, not above it.
And there you go, as JC was explaining that, we have had a change for second position. Herbert Frechelle, that 86, they are absolutely flying. It didn't really look like Tinko wanted to fight that one much. You could see that the Honda had such the speed down mineshaft. Pulled over to the left, decided to take his regular racing line, trying to tuck back up under the Honda, but here you go, the 86, they're closing and closing and closing, and into turn one, they move onto the inside. Jardier is going to hold it though. But we've seen this Honda do this exact move before. Can he pull it off again? Jardier says, no, you're not. There is no space there, sunshine.
Look at that, up the inside, easy as you please, almost as if Jardier missed the corner. I don't think he was trying to give him that much room. That almost looked like he missed the corner. Or maybe he was trying to give him that position. I don't know. Either way, new leader Herbert Frechelle has come from off of the podium all the way to the lead. 2 passes in half a lap. The Angry Bird 86 Honda comes back to the lead here in South Africa. The Honda is home.
And, you know, this was a car that before would have been fairly competitive, but we never thought it to be a winner versus some of the Porsches. And you can see in the background, Van Der Velde, he wanted that. He's seen that he caught back up to Jardier using, you know, this distraction, as it were, but it was not to be around the top of the hill. But look at the gap that the Honda is pulling now. That's just flying away.
I would use the term unfair, Ryan. I think that's unfair.
The poor Porsche is, you know, Jardier has done everything that he can. He's got to second. He's held off, you know, Tinko for this long time. And basically coming down the straights, the Honda says, that's a very nice position you have. It would be a shame if I was to completely take it away from you. I mean, the Porsche is now out of slipstream range. Look at the poor little Porsche, just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Considering as well, this is the home of Porsche South Africa.
Oh, dear. I knew the Honda was really good here. I know a lot of people favored it and have used it in past endurance races around this joint, but it's hard to overlook how good the Porsche is as well. But right now, I think ailing just a little bit is Jardier maybe on the tires here early in this race. And now Tico all over the back of him. And it's going to be very difficult to keep Tico back there if he wants that position. I don't feel that either Tico or Jardier put up too particularly hard of a fight to Herbert. I think they knew the gap had come down and then evaporated and just decided discretion is the better part of valor. And also, Jardier and Tico are not fighting Herbert. They're fighting each other for this championship. That's the important battle here. That's great foresight.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want any kind of... There's no reason when you're that close. I don't think either of those drivers wanted to take, you know, a big risk. What is the point of battling someone who's not in your points battle? So long as you two are together, you're minimizing, you know, the points gain or loss between each other. Tinko will have known that, you know, that there's nothing to be gained really from a Honda that's not even in your battle. It will be interesting though now. Tinko did look like at that one point, you know, he wanted now to get around Jardier, but he's fallen back a little bit as the 166. A half-second gap has opened up, but we know that the McLaren can claw that back given the time.
You just saw William Stevenson, who's running a very nice 8th place. Will's closing in on Martin Lawrence there for 7th place. I wonder how much damage the 171 got whenever the 51 rear-ended them earlier in the race, and I wonder if it even matters. Well, we'll certainly find out at some point. Nicholas Taylor, the Pleb Nico Racing 17, pounding the back of Max Payne in the 966. Max Payne, probably one of the most happy drivers in the field, knowing that because the Nissan GTR is not a currently used GT3 car, Kunos can play around with its BOP or closely bring it into line with some of the other cars. We'll be absolutely thrilled about that. Makes a good car even better. But right now, under fire from Nicholas Taylor, who's looking to go the long way around Sunset. That almost never works. We'll see in this particular occasion, a little squirrely on the brakes as the GTR, side by side as they run down the hill. Is it going to be the 17 out in front? I think it is. just getting beat to the corner. Nicholas Taylor getting the spot in an excellent battle.
That is an incredibly long way, all the way around the outside of Sunset. Both drivers, the utmost respect to one another. Payne knew that he was there, gave him the space, and the Aston Martin, same thing. It is a long old way to get round the outside, but just pips him coming into Clubhouse. And looking back, this is William Stevenson as well, the 108, seeing in 8th place. They're trying to catch up to the back of Martin Lawrence with that 171 Connection Lost racing car. Look from the onboard as well. That's going to start playing into it soon as well. The sunset here, it looks beautiful for us. It looks beautiful for people watching it. The drivers, though, it is a menace because it just starts to, get into your eyes.
Yeah, and if you're not confident where your braking point is, it can be very distracting. Leocop at this time of day is very dangerous. A double apex coming down a hill, especially if you're trying to race somebody else, being millimeter precise, which is required in this particular case, it can be very difficult indeed. I don't envy a lot of the drivers right about now. 5:47 in the morning here in sim time. We haven't talked about the weather simply because there isn't anything to complain about. I had been told by race admin that there could be the potential of weather. Well, it hasn't shaped up that way today. It has been beautiful skies and excellent driving and conditions for all involved so far.
I think there's only 2 types of weather ever at Kyalami. You either have lovely clear skies like we're seeing now and nice weather, or you need a sailboat. And actually, Martin Lawrence at the top of the hill, going a little bit wide, that will open the door for Stevenson. That 108 Bentley has the inside and actually has the better run off the corner. He's going to clear him before even the bottom of Mineshaft.
An excellent run there by the Bentley as they're becoming good here in the middle run of this. Well, I say that, but Grady and Berrier went up into somewhere around the top 5 very early on. Well, does Lawrence have a retort here? I don't think he will do, as he's hanging on to the back here, but doing just that. If I was Martin Lawrence, rearview mirror full of cars still. João Cavaca, Minto Crozen coming up behind them, and even Darren Mulholland. Yes, indeed. Darren Mulholland coming off the corner as well. All very close. Getting closer to the halfway point of the race. Only a handful of cars have come in. Ryan Mawson, what's your pit strategy if you are Chartier and Tico Van Der Velde?
I think they are very much going to mirror one another. I trying to gather what strategy either of them are on. It's hard to tell. I would think though that they're both on higher fuel load. If the Porsche has a very low fuel load, the car would handle quite skittish, and we would see that in the driving style, through the cameras. But B, I think it would pull out maybe a little bit in a straight line to a heavily laden McLaren before sort of being caught back up with the slipstream. I think both of those cars are going for the long run.
Be very hard to disagree with that sentiment. We talked about the stewards, but we haven't officially welcomed them into the broadcast. They've had a lot of no further actions thus far, and the trend does continue. Racing incident between the 899 and the 966 on lap 3. 5-second penalty for car 81 for causing avoidable contact with the 171 on lap 4. 15-second penalty for car 329 for taking out the 98 at the beginning of a corner, position returned. So instead of it being a drive-through, it's only a 15-second penalty. That was on lap 4. No further action for minor contact with the 18. No further action between the 899 and the 840 on lap 8. I've got additional stewards notes here. No further action for contact between the 899 and the 840. That wasn't a repeat of what I just said. That's the reverse of what I just said because, well, it happened in sequential corner. But I have additional notes on that as well. And it's the 899 turns into the 840, forcing the 840 off track and causes contact, but no further action because they must have been deemed post-fault for that.
And that was the one that we saw earlier where the 899, it wasn't necessarily the first impact that caused the crash, it was the subsequent snap in the other direction that sent that car off into the wall, and they were as good as done at that position. And well, looking on the onboard of this man, Herbert Fischel, sun glares in his eyes, looking down the beautiful landscape of South Africa, see Cape Town off in the distance. What can you say about this car? 2 odd seconds pulled out to the 39, 2.1 seconds under the timing marker. Not even reached the halfway point yet. This Honda, it used to be, you know, strong, but you would say that there are other cars that are equal to it. This car's just looking like it's on fire. We're going to have to get some of the marshals down there with a fire extinguisher to, you know, put the front of this car out.
Well, it's not George Boothby ridiculous. Remember, he had a 30-second gap at the end of one of these races. I don't think Frichel's going to get to that. But then again, Frichel's had a longer way to the front than Boothby had in his race. So I think even still, it's impressive that Frichel is just driving away. He's making it look almost effortless, Herbert is. And all power to him in the one of the 2 Hondas in the field. João Cavaca here with Rins Krozen. Oh, unsettled the car. Rins has had a lot of those little moments. Oh, are we done yet? Yes, we are. A couple of moments that Rins has had in this race. A couple of close contacts, Ryan.
João Cavaca having to take the Dukes of Hazzard line over the sausage curb back onto the track. That will have been a scary moment for Rins. But yeah, poor that 81 just seemed to have been hounded no matter what, where they go on track. The 81 can't take a break. They pit in to get out of the traffic, or they stay out to battle. It's just can't take a break.
Well, that's the other problem about pitting early, is that eventually you will catch the back half of the field that maybe are a bit slower than you, and you put yourself back in the situation you were trying to avoid. I still like the early pit stop, though, especially if you are stuck in a tough battle, because if they get to battling, that you're just going to be gaining time on them because you're not. But that is always the struggle that you have. Like Verstappen here, for instance, being stuck in traffic. He's the leader of the cars that have pitted, by the way, and he's dealing with stuff like this.
Yeah, that's the Christopher Verstappen car, the Bentley, going up the inside. And like I said, it's one of those, you've got to have that trade-off for the strategy. If you know that you can get through the traffic well, or you're going to have such a big gap, most times what people will do is they'll try and run, say, a quarter of the race, let the field spread out, and try come out on the side of the track that is clear. You can kind of see on the track map where we've got a little bit of a gap just in front of the leader, and then the rest of the small trains and like battles that we've had, and then pitted earlier. And Tico Van Der Velde looking ever so menacing in the rearview mirror of that Porsche. You can see every time he gets the run, but there is only a few places really that you can pass at Kyalami. If each driver is, at the top of their game, and they know how to maximize their car's strengths and weaknesses, they know where to put the car. Jardier knows this all too well. 166, I think, is just playing the long game at the minute. They're just sitting and waiting.
Well, that's the thing. Tico is not going to make a mistake. He's not going to drop off the back of Jardier, and Jardier doesn't make mistakes in the race cars. So the Jardier, who is only just human by virtue of being able to solve the "I am not a robot" captchas on websites. And I think Tico here is sort of meeting his match. And both those drivers are having fun. Jardier is having fun keeping it back there. Tico is having fun trying to figure out where he's better or worse at and what he can do. I call it going back to school. And you do that every time you follow somebody else. Martin Lawrence trying to defend here from the 82. Just a little bit of contact at Leacock.
Just fancied, I think the 82 decided that, the Martin Lawrence car would look a little bit better with just some black paint on that rear quarter. Just wanted to just give some as a friendly gesture. The 82 as well, I've noticed this, some of the Bentley drivers are running. It's the new livery that got added to the Bentley, which I must say, I'm quite a fan of the Two-Face look that it's got going on.
It's very, what am I thinking of here? It's very Batman, very Harley Quinn.
Well, it reminded me of like some of the really old liveries that you used to get, like Formula One cars, where they used to have, 2 liveries. And actually, that was in front of us. That's the Stevenson car, the 108 Bentley. Took the turn too wide, looked like they were going to be under fire from Menno Kroos, and briefly it was not to be though. Coming out of sector 1, all managed to fall back in line, but it just shows that the 108, they're trying everything to get around Martin Lawrence.
Certainly are, and you got to take them, especially in a pack this big. You got to take the runs that you get. You just can't afford to sit behind this large pack and just hemorrhage time, especially if you're quicker. Minnow knows that. Minnow's trying to very safely work their way around Stevenson and the like, but it's just sometimes the opportunity isn't there, especially if you're in a larger car like these. And just all over the back of him that time, and Leocott just trying to find any sort of angle. Of course, Minnow now has Darren Mulholland all over the back of him, so Minnow becomes the meat in the sandwich, and now Mulholland looking up the inside, can't quite get the overlap there, and Martin Lawrence scampering away just a little bit now. It's Will Stevenson now having to drive in the mirror all of a sudden.
Yeah, the Bentley Cup, as it was, having another bit of a few bites in at each other, and for Martin Lawrence, that's just great news. It's exactly what he wants. It takes the pressure, completely off that AMR as the Bentley boys manage to fight it out. It is difficult. It makes it even more difficult when you're all matched machinery like these three, because you don't have that advantage. I mentioned earlier that the Honda blasting past the Porsche, or the Porsche out braking someone, getting the better traction. If all three of you are in a Bentley, you don't have an advantage over anybody. It is just your driving style, your setup, and maybe how much fuel that you're running. But I think a lot of the drivers, at least for this one, have picked a very similar strategy. The people who have pitted seem to have either been tangled up or been in traffic and they've not wanted to, so they've had to adjust their strategy. And the 82 getting right under the rear wing now. Is the little bit of a gap that's still there.
Oh, it's so good. These camera angles show you just how close they're getting. A lot of trust involved here when you're racing this close. You followed somebody for so long, you get an idea of what their driving style is, where their braking points are, and you can just drive right under their wing. And I mean that literally, folks. Minnow Croson all under the rear wing of Will Stevenson. Stevenson not flinching, ice water in his veins. And meanwhile, third in this group, the green and red car of Mulholland just waiting for whatever is going to happen so he can have a crack. In fact, we'll have a crack here. Mulholland down to the inside, and he's going to be let go. He's going to be let go. Minnow did not want to go too wide through there and ducks down pit lane. I love the call.
Has decided that actually he's losing too much time battling all these, so has dipped out. But you said it, Dan Mulholland was sat waiting for the moment to happen, and it exactly happened right in front of him. Minnow Croson trying to outbrake Stevenson, trying to get around the outside. That left him completely vulnerable. It is the problem when you are the middle driver in a pack. Go for a move on someone, you are opening the door for the people behind you, and that was that. And jumping back as well, this is Jokavaka. Still trying to get back around Rins Kroos. We see he had done it once, and then they had that slight contact, so Joe Cavacca has fallen back behind. But here we go, the long old straight. It's in the slipstream. As the Ferrari still got it down the straight, so I think they're going to look into turn one, but they're too far away this time.
I'm just amused by a commenter in chat. Yanni says, how do you come up with that commentary? And I think they're talking about you with some of your metaphors and analogies you've had this race, pal. And if I had to answer for you, I'd say it's just because you're a professional, but you do have the euphemisms, and I guess that comes with being a professional.
Well, I mean, we did it once, I suppose. A professional is, if you've done it in a professional setting, I can call it that. Just about. These two are getting very friendly with one another, I think. Bro, Rins Kroos, he cannot get a break this whole race. Jokavaka, though, he wants that position back. We tried to go around the outside of Sunset. It was not to be. The 81 knows exactly where to put their car to defend. I'm pretty sure that Paul Kavaka is getting sick at the sight of this pink Porsche right in front of him.
I think there's a lot of cars that are pretty sick of that particular Porsche. He's been around the entire field as Rins today. First picked himself up a 5-second penalty for his troubles. Rins is just trying to make headway. He can see Bourdais in front, and he knows he's going to gain spots back in the sequence of pit stops here. got decent pace, does Rins, and now you got Kavaka, who is also pitted, who wants to take one of those spots away. Rins is not having any of it defending, and Kavaka is very clear what their MO is. I am going to get around you, says Kavaka.
And here we go once again down the straight. It's difficult. It's like these cars kind of match themselves out. You can see just at the end the Ferrari start to pull in. It looks to the inside, nothing to be, but you're just trying to throw your opponent off. It gets to these mental mind games. You know, you make the fake moves, just looking up the inside all the time, sort of showing it, and that just keeps putting on that pressure, putting on that pressure. If they have to mirror drive for even a second, that can be all you need. The slightest mistake in a field this tight, you will lose that position. The 33 has already done it once. They just need to do it again, which is easier said than done. Herbert Fischel, as your leader of the race, he actually dips into the pit. So we get a quick race replay and see this is a driver who knows exactly where the pit lane is. I think a couple of them are terrified of that pit lane now.
That is so weird to see that live. We know you and I, partner, a week ago, that would have never been the case. Getting down to the speed at the line was never the thing that you did. You didn't have to. As long as you were on the limiter and slowing down, it counted. And now, of course, Rochelle knows that. Everybody should know that by now, that you cannot speed into the pit lane. You have to be on the limiter at the speed at the line now, and it's just so strange to see people braking. And I was wondering too, coming into the day, with how interesting we'll call Kyalami's pit lane, if that would cause problems if they pitted in a group. Well, it hasn't come to that today. As speaking of coming to things, Tico Van Der Velde is still trying to figure out how to get by Jardier here. Hasn't put a foot wrong, neither one of these drivers. It's a boxing match at this point. Two prize fighters feeling each other out for the majority of this race. If any of you at home are wondering what the difference between professional sim racers and a normal sim racer is, this is what it looks like. Patience, consideration, thought, strategy, and pace. And that's exactly what you're seeing here.
And looking on the onboard, Tinko makes driving the McLaren look easy, just smooth, fluid inputs, makes it all look incredibly easy for the speed and the pace that they're going. But this car, the McLaren is quite an interesting car to learn, and it can bite you. It very much is an aero-based car. It likes its balance. It likes to be treated, smoothly and efficiently. But it is very, very difficult to do that, and to do that for lap after lap. But that will mean as well, so the 86 has come back out of the pits, and they are first of the cars that have pitted on the group, which means that they were on half fuel. It does explain the monumental pace. That gap was only about, I think, 3 seconds when he came into the pits. Well, it's taken more fuel than that, so now Rochelle needs to get the hammer down and get going to keep his pace if he's going to. Here we go.
Oh, I thought he was thinking about it.
81 versus the 98, and Djokovac in as well on the back of this train.
Well, this is definitely not what Rins wants, because Bourdais still has to pit. Wants Bourdais to pit, won't on this occasion as they come through the final turn. And again, this is only frustrating Rins. Rins not, as far as I can tell, not flashing the car in front as we ride on the, oh, now it is, there it is, the flashing of the lights. That is Rins telling Alexander Bourdais, man, you haven't even pit yet. Give me a break.
And speaking of people who have not pit, we briefly saw that was Frechelle getting around the Max Payne car. He's trying to make his way back up, as Frechelle needs to maximize any, all the time on the road now. He's taken that sort of penalty in the pits of putting more fuel in the car. Will it pay off though at the end of this race? I think that the 39 and the 166 at least, they're fueled right up until the end.
I think that is the case indeed. Meanwhile, the fight here does continue. Rochelle, who was the leader of the race, and if you missed it, it was fantastic. In the span of a lap, took second and then took first, and was leading for the majority of this race, has the quickest lap, out in 7th place, is nowhere near any other car. You have to say mission accomplished if you're the 86.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I say it is now all up to them, though. The stops, though, are going to be much lower, obviously, for 39 and the
Oh,
166 when they
Kabaka!
do finally come in. It's just a question: can the 86 overthrow it? And well, looking back at this, can the 33 overthrow the 81? Rins Krozen, he's oh man, is having to defend for his life against this Ferrari.
This is excellent. Once again on the straightaway, flashing of the lights, a little bit frustrated here as Max Payne comes down pit lane. Ren's flashing Bourdais. Bourdais doesn't have to pull over, even though he hasn't completed his stop. That is not precursory in any way. He can continue to defend his position because if slowing them down helps his race, that's part of his strategy. Bourdais just running his race, not leading or not doing anything that you would consider unnatural in any way, but certainly frying the last nerve of Rins Krozen right here. As Adam Dubel here in the 840, was there contact here? I think there might have been. Going to be a pass one way or another. Just a nice overtake there. Oh, and a little bit of curb by the GTR in the back.
And that seems to be the sort of one of the new favourite places as well. Sector 1, at least in this race, a lot of people wanted to try it around there. I think it is where there's multiple lines though, and it opens up so much that you can have all these moves. And looking up the 33, once again, looking up the inside of the 81, he's just trying to give that little bit more pressure. Again, if the pressure couldn't have got any higher on Rins Krozen, is pretty much the worst place to be. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place, especially in the Porsche, because that Lexus in a straight line, you cannot fight with that. Cannot fight with a Lexus in a straight line. In fact, most cars cannot fight with a Lexus in a straight line. You're being held up in the corners where your car is, is amazing, and on the straights, you're under fire from the Ferrari behind.
Well, when Lexus returned to Daytona to try and win the 24 at Daytona, and they eventually did that, Lexus America was asked, how did you win this race? And they said, well, we won this race about 6 months ago in the engine test bay.
There you go. It is quite a formidable V8, that car. It will, the straight line speed is just phenomenal. And that's another car as well that I'm going to be keeping my eye on, because that's now not a current car either. There was only Tech 1 who used to run that car, which was, I believe they were an AM team in the Real GT World Challenge. And yeah, they retired a little bit ago. I was kind of used to root on for them. They were, it was nice to see such an old gen car. And when I went to see them at Misano, they actually polled it with a last gen car and an AM team.
That is pretty incredible. Of course, the Lexus is still a current GT3 car in America, just not in the GWC. Martin Brady here. I wonder what we're looking at here as we go up to Leacopp. Is he just going to be let by? Yep, just let by the 329 there. Position for Tidge. He'll take those all day long. These drivers continue to fight. Bourdais still not pulling over, as is his right. Rins still frustrated. And Kavaka still not willing to put his car in danger to this point. Going back to chat, Johnny was talking about my comment about Cartier being a robot. That's not a joke. I actually did make him, in an interview, solve a CAPTCHA once to prove he's not a computer algorithm because he's just so nasty fast. And he did solve it, which proves that he is human for the time being. I've actually done that to several esports level drivers.
Or computer intelligence is getting way too intelligent. Have to be careful about them.
Oh yes, AI are getting smarter. They have those deep fakes and all of that.
And like looking out the windscreen, I'm sure this is a view that Joe Kavaka now will have got very much used to. Just trying to find that nick in the armor anywhere you can go. Or he's thinking, please, Lexus, just back Rins Krozen up into me. That's exactly what he needs. But the Ferrari, he's just, I partly think biding his time. He knows that the Lexus does still have to pit. you know that there is going to be a move one way or another, and coming through the S's, it might be he's really close up to the back of the A1, a bounce over the curb that will hurt his exit speed. He's going to try around the outside, late on the brakes. It is a long old way as the Lexus goes deep. Prince Cross and then trying to get up the inside of Borodai.
Well, I think if Rintz goes through, I'm pretty sure that Kavaka is going to try and follow him. It doesn't work. As you said, the Lexus in front is just unmatched on a straightaway. And that's exactly what you saw right there. Oh, going really wide. Was there contact there? Rintz is going to get passed by Kavaka, and now it's going to be up to Kavaka. Was it contact, or was it just really late on the brakes? A little bit of frustration peeking through. It's going to be brakes, just trying to go around the outside. I couldn't tell if they touched, but if they did, it was ever so slight. But Kavaka gets through. And now it's up to Kavaka to get this place. Defensive move down into turn 1 and what will eventually be turn 2, all the way over into the pit lane. It's very clear Kavaka not willing to give this spot back up.
No, the 33 has, they've made the move, but they've lost it once. He needs to keep it. He knows exactly where that Porsche is good. Slams the door, hard shot into turn 2 and says, no, you are not having it. But yeah, they just trying to use the late braking. The ABS system has changed, and it will throw some drivers off when you go for these, you know, the late braking moves that you need to get around someone who has maybe that better speed advantage over you. It has changed entirely how the ABS system works, feels, and it can just extend your braking zones miles. And well, I think that's kind of what we've seen there. ABS has taken over. Porsche was taken for a ride.
By the way, I'm going to say Rintz's team name for the benefit of all of you with audio equipment. Actually, I forget what the entire name of that team was. Look at that! Look at Kavaka now! How funny! One lap later, the roles have changed. It's now João Kavaka who's flashing forward eye. Kavaka going to the inside! This could be it! Tough defense from... Oh, Borodai! Oh, contact between Rins and Kavaka there as they all finally get through, but not before contact.
Rins crows, and he saw that gap. I think he had flashbacks to being stuck behind the Lexus again, decided that no, it shall not happen to me again on this lap, as we see the onboard. Kavaka going through. There's the 98. Touch, and what a snapback.
I think a week ago you'd have lost that car. I think the way that the sim works now, it's a lot better. It's a lot more realistic too. And there's no reason why that should send anybody flying, and it doesn't on that occasion. But Rins is going to be still fuming now because they finally got through, but still net one place lost. I'm going to say that team name, the Ooh Woo Can't Get More Pink team.
I shall say in glorious high definition now from the new microphone. There you go. You've had one time as Mawson.
Come on, Ryan Mawson. You don't like Uwu?
If I say yes, should we move on?
We are going to move on. Herbert Fischel now has continued to gain on the cars in front, but is in no danger of running into the back of them. That's good news because Fischel does not need to get involved with any other cars and slow his lap times down at all. Fischel needs clean running. He needs to be on full attack in between now and whenever Jardier and Tico pit. I think Jardier and Tico will come in relatively close together. I think maybe Jardier has about 8-9 laps left in it, I would have to say, and maybe Tico, maybe a lap less than that. It all depends on when they want to come in. And of course, Jardier back out in front. Herbert Fischel still the leader of the cars that have pitted. Christoph Verstappen, though, is only 3.2 behind him in the 747. Fischel is catching Nicholas Taylor in front, but not at a rate that they will get there before they have to pit.
Fischel as well, still holding that fastest lap, which obviously makes sense. That car has just been on such a low fuel load this entire race as well. The 86 coming in at the midway shows that they were on, you know, that half-half strategy. A strategy that used to be really, really common in ACC. We used to see a lot of drivers doing it, and now we see this great mix of strategies. You know, some people come in super early, few of the mid-race adopters, and then a lot of the high-end pros, you know, your Jardier, your Tico Van Der Velde, they go as long as they can. And actually, swapping back, the other Honda we have in the field, that's Harley Chamberlain trying to go around the outside of Max Payne. Move we've seen pulled off, but it's two of the great big, you know, the heavy speed cars. There's still an overlap there coming into the S's, and it will not be. Max Payne retakes the position.
It was a good fight from Harley Chamberlain, stuck around the outside. That'll be the second time today we've seen a car stick it around the outside of Sunset and still have a shot to contest that position. That's a lot easier said than done around that corner, but Chamberlain just coming up a little bit short to the GTR in that particular instance. And these two, they will be no stranger to one another in this championship, chained at the hip almost, these two. It's going to be hard to outfox each other. By now, Tinko will probably know what Jardier's strategy is and vice versa. Running deep there, however. I wonder, does Tinko even try to get around Jardier right now, or does he leave it to the last possible second, potentially after the pit stop?
Well, at Monza, I do remember being able to sort of watch the stream and have a look, and Tinko started to really come alive in sort of the last 15 minutes. You know, I think he actually kind of saves, you know, saves a little bit in the car left and then goes for it, which we might see. You know, we've seen the pace of the 166 before. If it's anyone's going to take the fight to Jardier, it's going to be that car. They're just pacing themselves for now, I think.
Could very well be. And of course, we saw some of the moves around the outside. You may be wondering, how's that possible? Well, the grip levels of a lot of the tracks have changed. We know the grip levels at Suzuka, Ryan, not as great as they used to be. We were told by real racing drivers that it's more realistic now because that track has never really had too much grip. And then tracks like this that have recently been resurfaced have a lot more grip in the track, especially offline, than you would normally expect. I think we're seeing that tonight.
Yeah, well, you know, going around the outside of Sunset, the hairpins, Sector 1, you know, all these moves that we've seen that have pulled off greatly, generally trying to go around the outside, the long way around someone outside of Sector 1, you put yourself at a huge risk because all it took was a slight bit of understeer. It was very possible offline. You hit those curbs and it was game over for you. But now it seems that a lot of drivers are able to, you know, pull this move off, and it makes the racing just so much closer. But yeah, some tracks have benefited and some tracks have become more realistic, as much to the moans and groans of certain sim racers. As you said, Suzuka has always been a tricky track, and I think it will always continue to be a tricky track.
We just saw something. I saw the 108 of Will Stevenson, and I was wondering, what did we miss something that happened to him? Because he's way behind where he should be.
Yeah, the 108 was in a brief sort of battle with Mulholland and Rosen and the other Bentleys. Unless something has happened to that 108 again.
Yeah, I don't know. It could have went off the track. We don't have any contacts. We've only got a few incidents. Been a relatively pedestrian night in the steward's box. It's well deserved. Not a heavy night for them. And just a couple more. A warning for car 33 for minor contact with the 81 on lap 18. No further action between the 171 and the 82 on lap 20. And no further action between the 81 and the 98 on lap 29. And I think they're looking at one more incident, but that's just about it.
That was a brief move that we saw as well. The 108 does manage to get around the 725 of Chamberlain, around the outside. And it's once again that outside line, just with the fresh tarmac that this track has had, you know, been the resurfacing works. You can pull off moves like that now a lot better. And it does mean as well that the racing is just that, you know, much more exciting. Looking back up to the front, speaking of excited racing, 166 still pacing Jardier. He's still there in the mirror. These two have basically been inseparable the whole race. I don't think I've seen the gap bigger than maybe half a second at the widest it's ever got. Both of these drivers, though, they know exactly what they have to do. Calm and collected, but you know, you must be thinking as Tinko, He must be formulating a plan now, getting into the last 15 minutes. The fuel load's going to start burning off, but the tyres also might have burnt off.
I'm going to tell you something as a driver. These are the races you remember. You can run 1,000 races, but the ones that you remember are the spectacular finishes and the great battles. What about a battle that's been going on for an hour? Literally, Jardier took the lead in turn 3 on the opening lap, and it's been just this the entire night. If Jardier wins this race, he'll remember this race because I battled a guy for an hour and I came out on top. I out-strategized him. If Tico wins it, he'll say that, oh, well, I came back after I followed a guy for that long and ended up winning the race at the last possible second. Storylines all considered there. Of course, they're all trying to beat Herbert Fischel, who we don't know how good or bad his pit stop was until Jardier and Tico come in the pit.
And as well, they'll be shorter, I think, for the leaders. You know, they've had this, the heavy fuel loads. And look at that, the 108 tries to go up the inside of Max Payne in the big Nissan, but no, straight line happens, and bye-bye Nissan. And what a swap to the inside at the last possible minute. The 108 looking up the inside. Max Payne has been hung out to dry. They're still side by side, though, coming into Cheetah. Are they both going to try and go through too wide? There's a bit of touching, and Max Payne gets sent off into the grass.
Well, I'm not a steward tonight, but I'm going to go ahead and call that a no further action. That's 2 into 1. Normally we say Ryan Mawson, it doesn't go, but in that case, they made it work somehow, but only just.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's some extended tracks going on over there, but yeah, both managing to get by Max Payne, though, will have been, so I'm sure, a little bit disgruntled. Lost out to the 725. That's the Honda of Chamberlain. Decided to follow through when all that happened. Easy for the Honda.
Close racing, a lot of contact. We told you to expect that out of this race and this new update. This is the new look of ACC, an ACC where you can make body contact significantly so and it not take you out of the race. And I think that not only is that true, I think tonight's race has lived up to the hype. It has been a fantastic affair. 13 minutes to go, and the weather has went the other way. We were told to expect pop-up showers this evening. It has went the other way, I'm afraid. It has been nothing but delightful. Look at the 98 going up the inside, trying to get back by Rins Crozen. It is a nightmare that continues to plague Rins Crozen in the 81 all afternoon long. Rins has been trying to get around this Lexus and finally did it, but only for the Lexus to come back on him, but he will not get the pass. Rins will stay in front here. Keep in mind, Borodai still has to pit.
Borodai still has to pit, but Borodai wants to, you know, he wants to get out of this and continue to do it. Actually, Rins Crozen dips into the pits. I was just about to say that Borodai, he doesn't want to lose any time, but there you go. Rins Crozen into the pits.
There you have it, into the pit lane, and that is not what you want to see. As he just disappeared? Am I? Yes, he has, hasn't he?
That he has. That car has come. You know, that pit lane, that garage door has come down. So Rins Crozen will take no further part in this race.
Yeah, it confused me. I looked up at the scoring. I saw him. I heard what you said, and we're seeing the replay of the Max Payne contact there. And yeah, I just feel like that was 2 cars that were trying to share the same part of Cheetah. And somehow they managed to get out of the Cheetah's mouth on that particular time. But Rins Crozen, heart goes out to him, fought all day in the 81. And I think it could be a bit presumptuous in assuming this, Ryan Mawson, but I feel like he just had enough.
Yeah, and the last piece of paper that we had dropped on our desk just now as well was actually an incident involving the 81 and the 98. So it's those two again, Borodai and Rins Crozen. He got a 5-second penalty. Forcing 81 forces the 98 off the track, keeps the position. I think it was at that point that the as well as the tyres, but the driver's head may have boiled over.
Yeah, it just, you could feel it all race long. Rins was being either passed around the field or was having little light contacts, and people were racing him really hard. And Some nights, man, it's just not worth it. You get a little hot under the collar, and luckily in his case, he didn't do anything on the track that would render his night unredeemable by any stretch. If that was me, I'd probably be in a wall somewhere.
Yeah, pretty much so. So there you go. Vince Crozen to have retired and looking back up to the field with some of the fellow Porsches, the 39, 10 minutes to go. You've got to think that the fuel load in Jardier's car now, it's going to start running out soon.
Yes, it is. For those of you that may be confused about what we're talking about, there are two Crozens in the field, brothers. There's Minnow Crozen in a Bentley, and then there's Rins Crozen, who was in a Porsche. Rins Crozen, unfortunately, has parked the car. He will take no further parts. So we're down to one Crozen. Not uncommon here at RCI to have family members driving. Of course, the Ryan Meenans, for instance, drive in several of the series. Cormac and Killian not in this championship, but of course the Crozens, who are a staple in the RCI hosts now. They take place in a lot of the championships and sometimes race against each other. I talked to Minnow somewhat recently about how weird it is to drive against your sibling. He said, well, it isn't usually because we don't actually race against each other much. I'm in my part of the field, he's in his part of the field, and we don't see each other much. And I think that's very interesting because Cormac and Killian, Ryan Meenan, Mawson, they're the opposite of that. They seem like they're always racing each other.
Oh yeah, they seem the exact same pace. I think it was at Night Owl where we saw them two battling each other, and yeah, we were making the joke because both of those brothers as well, they race next to each other. It's like you pretty much lean over and see what the other person's doing. I'm sure it adds a little bit of a complex into your racing as well. You can't be super sneaky with your setup or your strategy, and your brother sat right there.
Can you imagine one of them getting mad and just shoving the other one out of their sim rig? Is that could we give a penalty for that, for foul play?
You just reach over and their car mysteriously the ignition turned off. We have no idea how this happened.
Oh, Ren's in chat. I'm not going to say exactly what he said, but folks, you can read chat. Ren's in chat saying, "Shake my head, worst race in a expletive while." Had wrong traction control settings and expletive deleted, upped everything, was driving on 29 PSI pressures. What a frustrating night, Rins. We hope that your next outing is a lot better than tonight. We imagine that had to be a very, very difficult evening.
And it's probably the worst thing that you can do now with the 1.8 update the tires. As soon as you've got them outside of their pressures, it just turns to sheet ice. Cars, you know, they become almost undrivable, especially that driver that you picked, a Porsche. It's probably one of the hardest to control, even on a happy day. Take the Porsche out of its comfort zone and, you know, put it on wrong pressures. Yeah, that's going to be a sad. So hope to see you at the next one, though.
Hold on a minute. Can we talk about something? I'm just thinking he had wrong traction control. His pressures were way too high. He had some mistakes. He probably had damage as well. He didn't mention that. There were a lot of things wrong, but he was still battling for what do you think that was? That was going to end up being. I don't know what spot that would have ended up being, but he was still in a fight. He wasn't at the back of the field. If that had been me, I would have probably been several laps down by now. That's incredible to have all those issues and still be in a fight. Meanwhile, Jardier in the pit lane. Tinko will take the lead of the race. Konstantin Soldatov come through. Valentin Berrier is going to come through. How quick is this pit stop going to be? Fairly quick indeed for Jardier. Just a splash and dash. Now, the reason we're pointing this out is because we think Herbert Frischel might have taken quite a little bit of fuel or tires, right?
Yeah, well, that car came in at pretty much the halfway mark, so he would have had to take enough fuel to get to the end. That will have been at least maybe a 10-15 second deficit. The only way I think that Frischel could have worked that back up and led the race again, he would have had to been taken seconds out of the leaders per lap. It's not out of the Honda, the pace of that car that we saw. It still holds the fastest lap, but I think it might have been one of those just a step too far. Jardier has come back out of the pit lane, And with timing screen updates, the Honda is 6 seconds back. In 5 minutes, that is, I think, just a step too far.
Yes, Herbert Froschel shot his shot, but we were worried. You could probably hear it in our voices earlier. We started talking about Tinko and Jardier again leading this race. This is why we thought that Froschel had a very long pit stop. It turns out that was the case. Does Tico come in now? Yes, indeed. Responding to Jardier coming in a lap ago. Tinko's in. And that was really late on the limiter. Did he get down to the... Oh my goodness! Is it... Now let's play the game, Mawson. Is it the first line or the second line? That's the...
Well, I think it's the second line, but even then, it might have been, you know, you're calling it to the absolute limit there as the car drops and Tinko goes out. He comes out of the pit lane and no penalty. So he was in, but I think, you know, we will have had to use a freeze frame to see that.
That pit stop was very quick indeed, and by the watch that we have in the box, I'm being told 4 seconds quicker than Jardier. So I've been doing the math, Ryan Mawson, and I reckon he's going to be about 4 seconds in front of Jardier, and that will just about do it. And it all comes down to what Konstantin Soldatov and Barrier have, but it will take a miracle from those two. And of course, clean stop from Tico Van Der Velde, got down to the limit just at the line and is all clean. The gap 3.5 seconds to Jardier in what is fourth, but will be second. Herbert Froschel 6.8. It is a big ask, no matter how fast your car is, to get that time back in the final 4 minutes. Did Tico Van Der Velde just pull it off again?
It is really looking that way, and also looking back at some of the battles we thought might come to play. Verstappen has been catching Froschel. The gap now down to 5.3, but it's once again, I think, just a step too far. There's 3 minutes left into the race. 1 minute 50 left on the pit window, meaning that these drivers, they can't pit at the last on the last lap, and there you go. Soldatov and Barrier, they are in the last 2 remaining cars to pit. I think that will mean that Tinko, who we can see there on the timing screen, 8 seconds, he's just coming up onto the front straight now. He will retake the lead of the race. Where will these two filter out?
Oh, that was a really quick stop there by the GTRs. They're going to come out nose to tail still, and they are going to be really close. I like that stop by the Bentley there, all the way back on them. Valentin Barrier's stop was 2 seconds quicker. Saw them come in with space apart, and they left just about at the same time. So a little bit quicker stop for Valentin Barrier as this fight for what will be third place. But look in the background. This is Konstantin Soldatov's wing on his 911 Aston, looking back at Barrier. But if you look behind Barrier, you see Herbert Froschel's Honda. Froschel came in with the lead and is now just inside the top 5, but can very quickly get back to the podium. Can he do it? 2 laps to go.
Yeah, you said you can see the Honda. Well, I mean, you can just about see it around the Bentley. It's blocking the view entirely. But if that Honda's going to take it anywhere, it's going to be on one of the straights. And if I were Valentin Barrier, I'd be a little bit worried. You have to get around Soldatov. He gained all that time in the pits. The Bentley is better out of the corners with the lesser turbo lag, but you don't really have the time much to play around anymore. It's going to be now or never as we look. Time is running out for Harley Chamberlain, trying the switchback on the Ferrari. A move that we've seen work before, just not this time. And looking back up the front, this is still getting incredibly heated. Barrier in the middle, being attacked and having to defend at the same time.
Well, we saw all race long a lot of patience being shown by these front runners following in line. Well, you don't have that anymore. You have 1 minute, you have 1 lap left to go to get the pass done. It's now or never. You got to get a move on. You got to send it.
And is it going to be the 86? So you can see they're gaining. This is where the Honda starts to come into play. Looks to the inside. Is he going to try outbrake the Bentley? It is not going to be. Just the Bentley has the better brakes, as well as Barrier trying to look at the inside of Soldatov. Anyone to get that pressure on. Soldatov, though, that driver in the Aston Martin, we've seen some great things. He knows how to drive that car around this track. Just needs to hold it on for one more lap.
Jardier is catching Tico Van Der Velde, but it is a day late and a dollar short. The quicker stop by Tico is going to secure victory here as long as Van Der Velde can keep the car on the track. He's looking for 3 in a row and to take a commanding lead in this championship in the absence of George Boothby today that did not enter this race. Tico is going to exit the championship leader. The question is, by just how much? And battles going on all up and down the top 5 as Frechelle is trying to get around Barrier, and Barrier's trying to get around Soldatov. Very close. This is all for 3rd place, and it's very close. Is somebody going to make a move? Is anyone close enough?
Barrier looks up to the inside once again. It's just that little bit too late. He's got to be careful though. You can see the 86 of the Honda. He's trying to get his line perfect. If he's going to have anywhere, it's going to be into the last corners. But here you go. This is the 166. Tico Van Der Velde. He wins at Kyalami. The swapping back. It's going to be a drag race, I think, to the end. I think the Aston Martin, the 911 of Soldatov, he is going to hold it just about. Soldatov comes home 3rd, Barrier 4th, and Frechelle 5th. Not even a second between those guys.
I just want to say for Tico Van Der Velde, it's 3 weeks in a row. Excellently executed strategy, brilliant racing, clean racing, and excellent drive by Van Der Velde has given him the championship lead today. Jardier did everything he possibly could, and Herbert Frechelle will be wondering, how do I do just a little bit better next time? The strategy did not play out in their favor. Meanwhile, Harley Chamberlain still trying to get it by Adam Dubell in the 840 as they come to the line. One last gas for the Honda. Going to go around the outside, going to try it. I don't think it's going to work. Covered off by Adam, and that's going to be all she wrote. Dubell 14th, Chamberlain 15th place. Everyone now finishing up, just a few positions left. Tico Van Der Velde, your winner. Jardier, Soldatov, your podium. This is actually, no, excuse me, Soldatov had a previous podium now. So still, we've made it to this point in the season with only 4 different podium finishers. That is utter domination by those drivers. Outside the podium, Valentin Barrier, Herbert Frechelle rounding out the top 5, Verstreppen, Grady 7th, Lawrence Taylor, Minnow Crows in your top 10, Mahaland, Kavaka, Stevenson, Dubell, and Chamberlain, the top 15. Payne, Beeson climbs, Borodai, Sundstrom, Rinskrosen, Massoum, your finishing order. Ryan Mawson, what a race. We talked a lot about the 1.8 update, what this race could be, what we thought racing would look like after the update, with a lot of the competitiveness put back in some of the cars, the racetracks, all of these things. I think tonight lived up to the hype.
Absolutely, and I mean, seeing what some of the drivers can do now with some of the new levels of grip is just amazing to see some. And we have your winner of the race here for interview, Tico Van Der Velde, driver of the 166 McLaren, the man who hounded Jardier all day, started on pole, finished it on pole, but spent most of the race hounding that 2nd place.
Hello guys, thank you. Yeah, it was really really close. The Porsche is just so good on the start, so just accelerated past me, but I just kept the pace behind him, saved my fuel, and yeah, then I took him in the pit stop because he had to take a lot of fuel, and I didn't.
Well, I've just got to ask, Tinko, you've won 3 races in a row. You're the championship leader now, and every week you've had to battle somebody. Boothby, Jardier, Frechelle a little bit today. I asked you before if you thought that you were as good or better than some of the other drivers that you're beating. How do you feel now? 3 weeks in a row, you've had the right strategy. You've not messed up. You've been clean about it. You've got to feel like the championship favorite now, right?
Yeah, 3 in a row does feel good now. Yeah, but of course, Boofy wasn't here today, so I don't know. It's kind of disappointing because I enjoyed the battle with him, but still 3 wins in a row. I can't complain, and hopefully I can just keep these results going.
I got to ask you one more question, Tico, while we have you. As Ryan Mawson said to you a moment ago, you spent your entire race behind Jardier after he beat you into turn three on the start. You never were more than half a second behind him realistically. What was going through your mind for that hour plus that you were behind him?
Ah, I just kept calm, to be honest. Yeah, it was still pretty annoying because I had a little bit more pace, but I just couldn't overtake him. I with the new update, I don't know what happened with the McLaren top speed, but Charlie, I just gained on me on the straight almost every time. So yeah, that was strange. But I knew if I just stay behind him, save my fuel a bit, then should be okay in the pit stops, and that's what happens.
Well, three-time winner in a row, Tinko. You got to be the championship favorite now. You're certainly hitting on all of the right strategies. Going forward now into the final couple of rounds of this championship, I would assume everything for you is going to stay the same. You're not going to change anything.
No, not really. I'm not sure which next rounds are, but yeah, it just should be good. Keep my head down, and hopefully I can take this title.
Well, one from me once again before we let you go. When Frashel came up behind, was it looked like he just made it very easy to pass? Was we theorized that? Was it just a sort of a calculated move? You know that he's not in your points battle at all. There's no point risking anything, so just let him by. I thought you might have tried following him through when he went to when he got finally caught up to Jardia.
Yeah, exactly. There's just no point battling him. I knew he was on another strategy because the straight line of him was like so quick. So I just let him go, tried not to lose too much time. And then I knew he would also overtake Jardier, but Jardier battled him a little bit. So I could just get right behind Jardier. And I kind of had a chance to get past, but I didn't do it so well. I got a bad exit, I think. So yeah, but still, that was I just knew it was no point battling him.
Well, an excellent race. Patience pays off for a third week in a row. Your winner of three in a row, Tico Van Der Velde. Congrats.
Thank you guys. Good night.
Well, there you have it. As we end up in the back half of the GT3 World Championship here on RCI TV with a few rounds left to go. It has been our pleasure bringing you this championship up to this point, and it only gets more difficult going further. We expect George Boothby to be back. Jardier is not going to give up his pursuit. Of course, most importantly, didn't get fastest lap today, did Tinko? And it's going to make these last few races matter because it's not an insurmountable lead, Ryan.
No, it's not a one and done as sometimes we've seen if a driver can pull out that kind of lead early on in the championship, they're all still clumped together. 30 points sounds like a mountain to climb, but realistically, it's only a few positions and it can come all undone for you. Tinko needs to keep his game up. Guardia knows what he's chasing, and well, for Boothby, you know, we've seen what this man can do when he's on it. I would, if I was Tinko, I'd be, you know, having to formulate a plan versus the Porsches now, especially when he said that he wasn't necessarily gaining on the Porsche in a straight line. That is, you know, quite the change from what the McLaren used to be.
Statistics this season very simple. None of our front runners, the three front runners that is, have had a bad race. All of them, all inside the top five, almost all of the time. They are all on the podium. We've only had four podium finishers this season. There's a reason for that. The first one to crack might be the only one to crack. And of course, that would be mightily devastating. It's time for us to go, but before we do, we just want to thank all of you for being a part of today's broadcast. We invite you to like, subscribe, hit the bell for more GT racing action. We'll be back with you on Monday for the continuation of the Porsche GT Cup. And on Thursday, the continuation of GT4, and Ryan Mawson and myself will be back with you in 1 week's time for round 6 of the GT3 World Championship. And no night out this weekend, an off week because of EWC. And in 2 weeks, however, we will continue bringing you night out coverage. Like, subscribe, do all the things, follow us on all the things, join the Discord. Of course, a big thank you to all our partners that make this race and every race possible. RaceDepartment.com, the biggest repository of sim racing mods and news, aka Informatica, for providing our servers. Driver61, use our discount code at driver61.com, get 25% off your driver coaching. Driver61.com. Fanatec, use our Fanatec affiliate link, get some excellent quality sim racing equipment at fanatec.com. Top of the line stuff you'll find there. Simracing.gp. If you're tired of the pub racing scene, join simracing.gp and get involved with an upcoming series. It's free. Well, on behalf of everybody here at RCI, the stewards, the admins, and the entire broadcast team, we thank you for watching tonight. I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Ryan Mawson and Stewie in the box. And, well, you know what I say. Have a good night. We'll see you next time.
And we'll see you at the next one.